today is soft tacos. And remember, tomorrow is picture day, and this picture is going on your student ID. Also, student council members, tonight there's a meeting after school, and the quote of the day is, when you can't find the sunshine, meet the sunshine. Thank you, and have a good day.
Okay, Gideon.
Here.
Devin.
Here.
Norman.
Here.
Cheyenne.
Here.
Elsie. Mondavi.
Here.
Mia.
Here.
Skylar. Trevor.
Here.
Angel. Colton. Samuel.
Here.
Jacob.
Here.
James. Jolynn. Sadie.
Here.
Billy. Sebastian.
Here.
Jared. Shea.
Here.
Marianne. Okay. Let's review your vocabulary words. Turn to page 195. Okay, the first word, sidle. Thank you. That was about half of you, though, so let's try it again. Sidle.
To move sideways, especially in a way that does not attract attention or cause disturbance.
Thank you. That was much better. Furtive.
Secret, shifty, sly.
Oppress.
To control or govern by the cruel, unjust use for force or authority.
Doctrine.
Particular principle or position that is taught or supported as of a religion.
Okay. Turn to page 209. Conscientiously.
Thoughtfully and carefully.
Contrition.
Sorrow for one's sin or wrongdoing, repentance.
Supplication.
An earnest and humble request.
Beseeching.
Begging, asking earnestly.
Incredulous.
Unwilling or unable to believe.
Okay, those ones are a little bit more difficult. Okay. All right, let's start with Jared today.
Capitalize M for Mavis.
Good.
And A should be ATE.
Okay. Wrong type of 8, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Trevor.
Put a period.
Good. And Devin.
I don't know if this is right, but I put a comma after salad.
That is right. Mavis ate most of her salad. Okay, I see at least one more. Gideon, I think you're first.
A is supposed to be changed to and
Very good. And can you tell us why?
because the word next to it starts with a vowel.
With a vowel. Very good. Mavis ate most of her salad, comma, but she left an orange slice. Okay. Make sure you have those corrections before you turn them in. Thank you. Thank you. Pass those down, Jared. The crossword puzzles. Thank you. Okay. Before we get started today, to add to this roller coaster of ups and downs, I'm going to be gone tomorrow. I have a funeral I have to go to, and Miss Cynthia is going to watch the class, okay? So I'll leave her instructions, but we're just going to do everything as normal. I'll have the sentence sheets laid out for her, and then you'll probably just start another story, okay? So please be respectful and polite to her, and I'll be back on Thursday. Okay, today we are going to do something that this world does not do very much anymore. And we are going to learn how to write a letter. Turn to page 402. Okay, the standard that this is going to cover is standard 910W4. W stands for writing. So this is the fourth writing standard. Produce clear and coherent writing in which the development, organization, and style are appropriate to task, purpose, and audience. And we've gone over this a little bit before with the other essays, in that when I told you try not to use I in your last essay because it's very informal, right? You want to keep it very research-based. However, today we're going to be doing a little bit different, but it still applies to that same standard. Okay, follow along with me. We're going to read about Garrison Keillor. At an early age, Garrison Keillor felt that the name change was in order if he were to fulfill his dream of becoming a professional writer. Born Gary Edward Keillor in Anoka, Minnesota, Keillor grew up in a conservative religious household. His parents disapproved of activities such as drinking, dancing, and singing. Their 6 children were forbidden to watch television. Radio was permitted because, according to Keillor, I don't think people smoked as much on radio. Keillor aspired to follow in the footsteps of Mark Twain. He started his own newspaper called the Sunnyvale Star at the age of 11 and submitted poems for his middle school paper under the pseudonym Garrison Edwards. Boys, what's the next word? Are you following along with me? Would you rather read it? Okay, follow along. Which had a distinguishing quality that Gary lacked. After high school, Keillor pursued his interest in literature at the University of Minnesota, graduating in 1966 with a bachelor's degree in English. After college, Keillor hitchhiked to the East Coast in pursuit of a job with a magazine or book publisher. He realized that he wanted to write for the Midwestern audience and returned to Minnesota. In 1969, Keillor found employment with Minnesota Public Radio. It was there he began writing and hosting the radio show for which he is best known, A Prairie Home Companion. The show first aired in 1974. It featured music and comedy, including imagery commercials and stories told by Keillor. These stories captured the warmth and idiosyncrasies of small-town America. Keillor's tales from the quiet fictional town of Lake Wobegon, Minnesota, became widely popular. In 1980, A Prairie Home Companion was broadcast nationally to an audience of 2 or 3 million listeners. Dual passions, writing and talking. In interviews, Keillor has confessed that he never imagined staying in radio. However, his monologues for A Prairie Home Companion developed and honed his storyteller's voice. In 1970, the New Yorker magazine published one of his stories. Subsequently, he became a regular contributor to the magazine. A realization of a lifelong dream. Keillor once said, "I have written for the New Yorker since high school, though they weren't aware of it at the time." In 1985, his radio character's voice, as well as their stories, became Keillor's best-selling novel, Lake Wobegon Days. He continues to write and has published several more works, including Leaving Home and We Are Still Married. Garrison Keillor was born in 1942. Okay, go over to the building background section. Like his revered predecessor, Mark Twain, Garrison Keillor is an American humorist. Although How to Write a Letter is nonfiction, it reflects the definition of a humorous story found in Twain's essay, How to Tell a Story. The humorist, Twain says, is one who has mastered the art of telling, not just storytelling. In the following essay, Keillor's telling involves informing his audience about themselves and others. How to Write a Letter provides instruction to readers on their own needs, behaviors, and assumptions. As he reinforces the importance of communicating on an intimate and memorable level, Keillor provides humorous revelations that remind us not to take ourselves too seriously and to not to take ourselves and others for granted. Okay, we're going to be studying somewhat a thesis. So go down to where it says thesis. And we've talked about thesis before. A thesis is a main idea of a work of nonfiction. The thesis may be stated directly or implied. Recognizing a writer's thesis helps the reader understand and elevate the text within a larger framework. Okay. Turn the page. How to Write a Story. A letter by Garrison Keillor. All right, let's read one sentence apiece. It's not very long. Let's start with Gideon.
Which way am I going?
It's going to go over to Jake.
We shy persons need to write a letter now and then, or else we'll dry up and blow away.
It's true. And I speak as one who loves to reach for the phone dial, the number, and talk.
I say, they bother, earbuds, shaking babes.
The telephone is to shyness what white is to February. It's a way out of the woods, and yet a letter is better.
Such a sweet gift, a piece of handmade writing in an envelope that is not a bill, sitting in our friend's path when she trudged home from a long day spent among wahoos and savages. A day our words end will help prepare.
There don't need to be
Immortal.
She can read them twice and again tomorrow. You're someone I care about, Corinne. And think of often, and every time I do, you make me smile.
When we need to write someone, otherwise nobody will know who we are.
Well, pause for just a sec. You see how that's pink there, Cheyenne? We need to write, otherwise nobody will know who we are. That's thesis. At this point in the essay, how do you think this statement might relate to Keillor's main idea?
No one will know the real you unless you put it out there. Writing will express how you truly feel.
Very good. So, what he's saying is this is basically, or it's not the thesis, but it is a thesis, right? We can determine quite a bit from this one statement. Okay. Go ahead, Billy.
They'll have only a vague impression on us as a nice person, because frankly we don't shine at conversation. We lack the confidence to trust our faces forward and say, "Hi, I'm Heather Hooten. Let me tell you about my week."
Mostly we say, uh-huh, and oh really.
People smile and look over our shoulder, looking for someone else to meet.
So a shy person sits down and writes a letter to be known by another person, to meet and talk freely on the page, to be close despite distance.
To escape from anonymity.
Anonymity.
And be our own sweet selves and express the music of our souls.
Same thing that moves a giant rock star to sing his heart out in front of 123,000 people moves us to take a ballpoint in hand and write a few lines to our dear animal.
We want to be known.
We want her to know what we have fallen
that we have fallen in love, that we quit our job, that we're moving to New York, and we want to say a few things that might not get said in casual conversation. Thank you for what you're meant to me. I am very happy right now.
The first step in writing letters is to get over the guilt of not writing.
Okay, pause for a minute, Mondavi. How does this first step reveal an element of Keeler's thesis? Can you read that again for us in the pink?
The first step in writing letters is to get over the guilt of not writing. So, like, just start writing.
Right. Very good. So you don't worry about all the things that you wished you'd have write in the past, but you never did, right? Okay. And when it says first step, what is that implying?
It's like the first thing you do is just start writing, then you can go back.
Right. And when I say first step, what does that make you think is coming up? Yes. So there's going to be more steps. So that's kind of a way that he's using this thesis to kind of guide what's coming next, is that this is the first step. Your mind automatically knows, okay, there's going to be more. Very good. Sebastian?
You don't owe anybody a letter.
Letters are a gift.
The burning shame you feel when you see unanswered mail makes it harder to pick up a pen and makes for a cheerless letter when you finally do.
I feel bad about not writing, but I've been so busy, etc.
Skip this.
Few letters are
Obligatory?
obligatory, and they are thanks for the wonderful gift. And yes, you're welcome to stay with us next month, and not many more than that.
Write those promptly if you want to keep your friends.
Don't worry about the others. Accept love letters, of course.
When your true love writes, dear light of my life, joy of my heart, O lovely pulsating core of my sensate life, some response is called for.
Some of the best letters are tossed off in a burst of inspiration. So you keep writing. Stuff in one place where you can sit down for a few minutes and here where I am in the middle of a book entitled We Are Still Married, but thought I'd drop you a line.
To your sweetie too.
Dash off a note to a pal.
Envelope, stamps, address book, everything in a drawer so you can write fast when the pen is shut. Hot. A blank white 8x11 sheet can look as big as Montana if the pen's not so hot dry. A smaller page and write boldly. Or use a note card with a piece of fine art in the front. If your letter ain't good, at least they get a Matisse.
Matisse. Do you know what that means, Jacob? Meaning that back in the day, you could buy little letter paper, and they just have a little piece of art on it, kind of like this art we have here in our book here. And they're saying that if it's intimidating to write, then get a smaller paper and get something with some art on it. So if they don't like your letter, at least they have a nice little piece of art to look at. Okay, Mondavi?
Get a pen that makes a sensuous line. Get a comfortable typewriter, a friendly word processor, whichever feels easy to the hand.
Sit for a few minutes with a blank sheet in front of you and meditate on the person you will write to. Let your friend tell you something to him or him another moment you.
Remember the last time you saw each other and how your friend looked and what you said and what perhaps was unsaid between you. And when your friend becomes real to you, start to write.
Write the
Salutation.
salutation, dear you, and take a deep breath and ponder it.
A simple declarative sentence will be followed by another and another and another.
Tell us what you're doing until it, like you were telling, like, tell it
Talking.
like you were talking to us.
Don't think about your grammar. Don't think about literary style. Don't try to write dramatically. Just give us your notes.
Where did you go? Did you see what? Who did you see? What did you say? What did you think?
If you don't know where to begin, start with the present moment. I'm sitting at the kitchen table on a rainy Saturday morning.
Everyone is gone and the house is quiet.
Hard work to slip off a letter to a friend. Maybe you're trying too hard to be worth it.
A letter is only report someone who already likes you for reasons other than your brilliance.
Take it easy.
Don't worry about form.
It is not a term of paper.
When you come to the end of an episode, you start a new paragraph.
You can go from a few lines about the sad state of pro football to the fight with your mother to profound memories of Mexico to your cat's urinary tract infection to a few thoughts on personal
Indebtedness.
and on the kitchen sink and what's in it.
The more you write, the easier it gets. So when you have a true friend to write to, a compadre, a soul sibling, then it's like driving a car down a country road. You just get behind the keyboard and press on the gas.
Don't tear up the page and start over when you write a bad line. Try to write your way out of it.
Make mistakes and plot on. Let the letter cook along and let yourself be bold.
Outrage, confusion, love, whatever is in your mind, let it find a way to the page.
Writing is a means of discovery, always, and when you come to the end and write yours ever or hugs and kisses, you will know something you didn't when you wrote Dear Pal.
Probably your friend will put your letter away, and it will be read again in a few years from now, and it will improve with age.
In 40 years from now, your friend grandkids will dig it out of the attic and read it, a sweet and precious relic of the 80s that gives them a sudden clear glimpse of you and her in the world for old-timers now.
You will then have created an object of art.
Your simple lines about where you went, who you saw, what they said will speak to those children and will feel in their hearts the humanity of our times.
You can't pick up a phone and call them in the future and tell them about your times.
You're simple. You're simple. Am I on the right one?
Last one. Last sentence of the whole thing.
You can't pick up a phone and call the future and tell them about our times. You have to pick up a piece of paper.
Okay, I think it might have been Norman or Devin who read the term ancient 80s. What do you think that means? You did, Trevor? What do you think that means, ancient 80s?
The 80s, I don't know.
Like the 1980s? And they're ancient? Aren't they?
Is that when
I was
got famous or something?
No, that's when he wrote this.
Oh.
And he's saying that years from now, and you'll say, oh, remember the ancient 80s? I was born in the 80s. Already, to you kids, that's ancient, isn't it? Letters are ancient. But what he's saying is that you may remember a phone call, but you can't get the details. But if you have a letter, then you can keep that, and you can read it over and over and over again. I used to do this. I used to have pen pals and things like that, and we'd write letters and send me a couple of quarters for my birthday, things like that. That's probably nothing nowadays, huh? A quarter.
Take a quarter.
Okay. Anybody here ever written a letter? Wow. Good.
I've written a letter to my home school. I had to write a letter to my nephew, and he's supposed to read it in the future.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Good, good.
Read it.
In 6th grade, we had this pen pal thing from one school to another.
Was it far away?
I don't know. We never knew what school it was.
Oh, really?
We never got to know the other person's name. We were just playing.
But they wrote to you too? So maybe it's a different ratio. How many people here have actually received a letter? Okay, let me ask you this. Do you still have it? Because it's special. Now you're one of those people we talked about last time, huh? Just throw things away. A lot of times you'll keep a letter. I still have letters that he was my nephew, but he was the same age as me, so we were friends, and he lived in Salt Lake. And they're a little bit more special because you can keep them, and it's like he said, it's a portal into the past, especially if you do like what he says in the book. If you kind of give him the updates, what's going on in your life, what's going on in your school, and it kind of speaks to him. So, I was a little bit more, I won't say hard on you, a little bit more strict with the last essay that we wrote. In fact, the last two. This one, it's a little bit more lenient, right? Because the style and the tone is more personal. It's not so regimented. It's not so research-based. It's personal. That's what makes a letter a letter. So in this, produce a clear and coherent writing, so you still want it clear and coherent, in which the development, organization, and style are appropriate to task, purpose, and audience. Task is this assignment. Purpose is we're going to learn how to write a letter, right? And in the audience, it's going to be whoever you choose. I want you to write a letter today to a person that you used to know, used to be close to, that you aren't anymore. And that doesn't mean that you are not friends anymore, or he's still your boyfriend, or whatever like that. Just you might have had a friend in preschool who you just don't talk to anymore, or even 5th grade or something like that. Or a family member that's moved away. Maybe it's an older sibling that got married and moved away. I remember when I did this assignment when I was in school, it was 1996, and my sister had just passed away. And I says, can I write one to my sister? And the teacher said, absolutely. That's a very good, because it gets your thoughts on paper, and then he says, but I want you to keep that. If you want to keep this letter, let me know. Write a note at the bottom, and I'll give it back to you. Some students have actually gone and mailed them after this assignment was over. Okay, I want you to pick somebody you're going to write this letter to. And where do I write this? You're going to include 3 things. These 3 things, we still need a thesis, right? It doesn't have to be the very last sentence of the introductory, and you don't even really have to have much of an introductory. You have to have a few sentences saying, hi, how you been? Things like that. But you'll want to kind of say, let me just give you a heads up of what's going on in my life. And you're going to write about 3 things. So basically make these your 3 paragraphs. You're going to write about your school. You're going to write about your favorite class, which is this class. And then you're going to write about at least one personal aspect of your life, okay? Just one thing that's going on in your life. Whether it's a sport that you're into, or a new TV series you're into, or this cute boy that you're into. Don't make it too personal, though. Okay? And here's the thing. I want this handwritten, okay? If you choose to type this later, then okay. But for this assignment, I want it handwritten. And I want it to look good, okay? So use your best handwriting. Okay, so pull out a clean sheet of paper, and let's start. Everybody have a piece of paper? All right, how do you start? What's the first thing you write?
Do you write the date or the year?
Date. I'd write the date down.
Where do you put isn't it on the top right?
It doesn't matter so much, but yeah, I'd put it at the top right. Put the date there. That way you always remember. Okay, after the date, what are you going to write? The address? You can put your address, but you can also put that on the envelope on the outside. What does it say in the story to write? It was toward the very end. Everybody see that? It's italicized. What do you usually start a letter with?
Dear.
Dear. And then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write the name of the person that you're going to be writing this to. After you have a person in mind, make sure that you start off with some sort of introductory, right? The one he gave here was hugs and kisses, because maybe that's a very personal person, but if it's your buddy from 5th grade, you probably wouldn't start out with hugs and kisses. But you would have some sort of format or salutation, right? That's what he said, a salutation. Like, how's everything going for you? Or, how have you been? Something like that. Stumped? Okay. After you do some sort of salutation, you probably want to give some sort of reference of how you've been. I've been fine. I've gotten tall. I'm growing up. I'm in high school now. And then comes your thesis, right? And your thesis will be, I just thought I'd drop you a letter and tell you a little bit about what's going on in my life. It's as simple as that. It gives your reader an idea of where you're going with this assignment. Then remember that I want you to include these 3 things. Tell a little bit about your school that you're going to right now, a little bit about your class that you're in right now, and a little something about your personal aspect. I don't really want to rush the process because it's like he said, you just have to let it come to you. Feel the letter, keep going with it, let it flow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the rest of time for this, and about 10 to 7 minutes before, we'll just go around the room and I'll ask you who you wrote it to, okay? And you don't have to give specific names. You can say my nephew, because I'm not going to know your nephew, or my cousin. I don't need specific names. Just kind of reassures me that you do have somebody in mind. Okay, we're going to go around the room. I'm just going to ask you who you chose to write to, and it can be as personal as you want to give me their name, or it can just be, I don't know, my brother, my nephew, something like that. I'll start with Jared. Who'd you choose to write to?
My grandmother.
Grandma, okay. Norman?
My 5th
Oh yeah, you wrote about her. Okay. Devin? James? Like James who's not here today? Okay. All right.
One of my old friends in 5th grade.
Okay.
My aunt.
Your aunt?
An old friend in 5th grade.
5th grade. Your grandma? Cheyenne? An old friend? Okay. Sadie?
People's gonna call me crazy, but my mom's lesbian girlfriend.
Okay. Mia? Just a friend?
Yeah.
All right.
My aunt.
Your aunt? And Angel hasn't done it yet. Shale?
My grandma.
Your grandma?
My brother. It was all the way up in Las Vegas.
Vegas? Okay. Mom Dovey? Your sister?
One of my friends that I used to be friends with, and my best friends.
No, you're not anymore?
My Uncle Tom.
He's no longer with us?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, please make sure that if you would like to keep this after you're done, I'm still going to give you, we still have about 6 more minutes. But if you'd like to keep this after I've done grading it and have me give it back to you, please write a little note at the bottom saying, please return or something like that, okay? And I'll give it to you, and please let me know if you end up mailing it. I'm always interested to see how many students end up actually sending them.